Chapter 10. Before the change of command ceremony, the week seemed composed of 6 Saturdays to the Meacham children. Their father, as Marianne would say, was too much with them. One Tuesday afternoon, the heat of August lying on the town like a corpse, Colonel Meacham ordered Ben and Matthew into the car for a trip to the base. "Are we going to the base?" Matthew asked. "'Cause I said we're going to the base," his father answered. "No special reason, Dad?" Ben asked cautiously. "Yeah, sports fans, I got a special reason. I'm going to blow apples off your heads with hand grenades. Now get in the car," his father replied. On the way to the base, Colonel Meacham announced to his sons in a calm, didactic voice that they were both in critical need of a haircut. "You're starting to look a little scruffy. Your mother let you grow too much hair in your noggins while I was overseas. You gotta remember the old Marine saying, hair is the glory of a woman but the shame of a soldier." "We aren't soldiers," Matt said. "We ain't women either," Bull answered. "We just got one 2 weeks ago, Dad," Ben whined. "Well, we're starting back with the old regime now, the old Corps. From now on, it's going to be a haircut every week by a qualified Marine barber. If you don't like it, you can stick it up your butts, 'cause I ain't asking if you like it or not. I'm telling you." Then, with an arch, almost imperial toss of his head, he said, "The great Santini has spoken." Argument was fruitless once the name of Santini was invoked. Both boys knew that, and both knew that if they continued to milk the issue, they were merely inviting calamity. Of all the strategic fields on which to wage war against Bull Meacham, the automobile was the most precipitate. It was an enclosed arena with limited avenues of escape. The doors, of course, but their value decreased as the speed of the car increased. Also, missing in the necessary props for a showdown was the presence of Lillian Meacham. Ben had instructed Matt and his sisters never to confront, challenge, or anger Bull unless their mother was in shouting distance. Over the years, Ben had formulated fire-tested strategies. The other children looked to him as their strategist, their Clausewitz, and Matthew said nothing as they drove up to the main gate of the Ravenel Air Station. As they walked into the PX, Bull asked his sons, "Do you both have your ID cards?" "Yes, sir," Ben said. "Let me check and make sure they haven't expired," Bull said. "They don't expire for 2 years," Matt offered. "Give 'em here." Bull studied the 2 cards and began to laugh. "These are mighty fine pictures, you 2 boys." "Yeah, Dad, the Marine Corps spares no expense on those ID photographs. It must cost them at least a nickel for every million dependents they take pictures of," Ben said. "They're just for identification," Bull said. "Dad, there's not a person in the world who could identify me from that photograph." When they entered the barber shop, Ben remembered how much he hated Marine Corps barbers. They were interchangeable from base to base, like returnable bottles. Always, their ranks were made up of humorless civilians, culled from the lowest species of Southerner that could plug in an electric clipper. Somehow, the barbers always became self-important, thinking of themselves as tough, no-nonsense guys, because they cut the hair of tough, no-nonsense guys every day. Of course, Ben had to admit that the Marine Corps did not require artists for the job. The Corps wanted butchers, haters of hair, and surgeons who kept platoons harmoniously mutilated in the form of old masters. In the Corps barber shops, the heads of the entire base were handcrafted for the edification of visiting generals and inspection teams. The old enmity came back to Ben as he sat down in the chair farthest away from the entrance of the shop. For a whole year he had gone to civilian barbers in Atlanta, had come to love the virile smells of tonic and powders, the laughter of old men gossiping above the drone of clippers, and all the joking and the storytelling, and the sound of the bootblack's rag popping. It had been the first time in his life when he could describe to a barber how he wanted his hair to look, then lean back, stare into a mirror that reflected his image in a dance toward infinity, and wait while the barber did his bidding, shaved his neck with hot foam, and spun him around like a king to see if the job was properly done. Now he felt rough hands grabbing at his throat. The man who glowered before him conformed to the classic stereotype of Marine barber Ben had envisioned in his mind. The face was saturnine, pockmarked, and the mouth was grim. The man's hands trembled. He also had a nervous habit, which Ben noticed while being garroted with the barber sheet, of blowing tiny spit bubbles that were scarcely noticeable unless his face happened to be a foot away from your own. The bubbles were small, inconspicuous, and held a strange, unpalatable beauty when shafts of light pierced them and brightened his mouth with a briefly degraded spectrum of color. I'm going to be sick, Ben thought as he offered his head up for sacrifice. Colonel Meacham, after delivering precise instructions to Matt's barber on the far side of the room, came up to Ben's barber and said, without looking at his son, I want you to cut the sides as short as they go, mister. Cut those sideburns all the way off. Leave a little bit on the top to comb, but on the sides, white walls all the way. I'll be in the pool hall, Ben. Why don't you have him shave my head, Dad? Ben said, but his father was out of earshot. When his father left the shop, Ben said to his barber in what he hoped would pass for a voice of substance and command, just trim the sides, mister, very lightly. Your father said white walls, sonny, the man answered sourly. Yes, I heard him, Ben said, then in a sterner voice. But the guy who is getting the haircut, namely me, and the guy who is paying for the haircut, me again, said trim the sides. Your old man's a colonel, sonny, you get white walls. What if he had told you to cut my nose and ears off? Ben said, I guess you just whack 'em right off before you brush the hair off my neck, huh? At ease, dependent, the barber replied, his shears cutting deep swaths into Ben's hair. He was pressing hard with the clippers. Ben relaxed once the point of no return was reached. Then he spoke again, looking at the barber in the skinny mirror in front of them, which Ben recognized as Marine Corps issue. Do you know what I like about military barbers? You guys are such high-class people. I mean it, sincerely I do. The absolute cream of military personnel. Handsome, aristocratic, urbane, without being affected. What are you talking about, dependent? The man said between spit bubbles. Ben continued, warming to his topic. Scientists conducted a study last year, fine sir. Would you like to hear the results? You're a real wise ass, dependent. Yeah, but you're a little afraid of me, 'cause my daddy's a colonel, right, fine sir? Now, let me tell you about the scientific study. The scientists did a study of all Americans. The average white man had an IQ of 100. The average Negro had an IQ of 90. The average Mongoloid idiot had an IQ of 30. Now, and this is the interesting part, the truly fascinating part to me, Marine Corps barbers had an average IQ of 21. They say the Mongoloid idiots are in an uproar that you guys came so close. You officers' kids think you're hot shit, the man hissed, the pressure of his clippers harder against Ben's scalp now. There's an opening downtown at the morgue for a man to shave the pubic hair off the balls of male cadavers. With your talent and personality, you'd be a shoo-in. You've got wax in your ears, dependent, the barber said. Don't you ever clean 'em? A moment later, the barber spun the chair around to face the mirror. Ben's hair was now as short as his father's. Why don't you just give me a trim, fella, huh? What's such a big deal about a trim? The colonel said white walls. You know, I'm one of those weird guys who likes a few tiny filaments to be left on top of his head after he has a haircut. It wouldn't have hurt you to ease up a bit. Just pay up, dependent, the man said, a bubble of saliva darting out of his mouth. Matthew had also fared badly. His hair was cut shorter than Ben's. A prickly tuft of hair ran down the middle of his head, bisecting it. You look like the last of the Mohicans, Matt, my boy, Ben said, grinning at his brother. I wish Dad would go on another med cruise. They walked out of the barber shop toward the pool hall. As they passed a jeweler in a cubicle hunched over a watch, Ben told his brother, Today you are going to witness a beautiful sight, Matt. You are going to get a chance to watch me whip Dad one-on-one in basketball. And seeing Dad lose in a sport is a sight beautiful to behold. He is the worst loser in the world. Of course, he's the worst winner in the world, too. He'll kill you, Matt said. There isn't a sport in the world he can't whip you in. Look, I've been playing basketball almost every day of my life for the past 3 years. I'll be 18 soon. He's getting older. It's time to start whipping him. Yeah, Matt protested. I heard you talk for years how you're going to beat him. You might start winning, but then he'll start talking to you. You'll choke like you always do. Nope, I've been preparing for this grudge match for a whole year. He's good at psyching me, but not this time, Ben said. It's too hot to play basketball. Why do you think I chose this particular day, little brother? He'll melt like a popsicle out there. Don't call me little. Okay, Mohawk. Don't call me anything. The challenge match was set for 5 o'clock that afternoon. Ben swept off the cement court that spread from the back porch of the house to the garage, while Bull dressed upstairs. The rest of the family gathered by the side of the court to cheer Ben while he warmed up. Matt fed Ben passes out beyond the foul line, and Ben, dribbling twice, would fake a drive toward the basket, then go up with a quick, awkward jump shot that was adequate, even though it lacked artistry and the essential purity of flow always found in good jump shooters. Then he began to drive all the way to the basket, dribbling slowly, then exploding toward the basket, changing hands in midair, and letting the ball roll off his fingertips and into the basket. Lillian coached him from a wicker chair by the porch. You can't listen to him, Ben. Once you listen to him, he has you beaten. Keep your mind on the game, your game, and don't worry about him. If you start beating him, he'll start to cheat. You just concentrate on your game. Bull appeared on the back porch wearing a sweatsuit with the United States Marine Corps stenciled on it. Standing on the porch, he raised his clasped hands over his head and pranced like a boxer going into the ring. Boo, boo, his wife and children jeered. You ready to go one-on-one, Dad? Ben called from under the basket. With you? Bull said, skipping lightly down the stairs. You ain't man enough to go one-on-one against the great Santini. Let me play too, Dad, Matt pleaded. No, you get out of here, Matt. Go sit under a toadstool or something, Bull said. Matt ran into the house. Only Marianne saw that he was crying, and she followed him. Ben threw a pass to his father. Dribbling 3 times with both his right and left hand, Bull went into a strangely graceful crouch and threw up an arcing 2-hand set shot that swished through the net. Bull crowed with delight, a self-indulgent but euphoric eruption that silenced his wife's catcalls for the moment. Looking toward the lane, he said, the old boy still got it, huh, Petunia? That shot went down with the Titanic, Dad, Ben teased. Still counts 2 points, does it not, Jocko? Bull snapped back, shooting another arcing set that hit the back of the rim and bounced back to him without ever touching the court. Marianne slipped out of the back door without Matt and sat down again by her mother. Bull shot another time, and once more the ball swished through the net. What was it like, Dad? Ben said, throwing him the ball, shooting at a peach basket. You're going to find out what it was like having a fist stuck up your left nostril if you don't quit your yapping. Marianne squealed from the sidelines. You could stick 2 fists and a leg up Ben's left nostril with that schnoz of his. Ha ha, very funny, Ben sneered at his sister. I'm surprised Mommy let her sweet little boy play any nasty sports at all when the big dad was overseas, Bull taunted. Don't listen to him, Ben. He's starting on you now. Just think about the game, Lillian called out. There's a reason I'm going to beat you, Dad. Do tell sports fans. It's because, and here Ben paused, ensuring that everyone was listening, it's because you're getting fat. What'd you say? Bull had picked the ball up and was holding it in the crook of his left arm. Lillian doubled up with laughter in the white wicker chair. Not real fat, just kind of chunky. You look kind of slow now, Dad. We'll see who's slow. I told you never to mess with Grease Lightning, son. Grease Lightning don't weigh no 220 pounds. I could eat you for breakfast, sports fans. You've been eating something real big for breakfast, that's for sure. Bull threw up another set shot. It was good. Then he looked toward Ben with hard eyes. Your mouth has improved since I left, but you're still a mama's boy. You still haven't developed the killer instinct. I could psych you out even if I was 100 years old. If I was paralyzed from the neck down, I could still beat you in a spitting contest. And there's one thing we both know, I'm a hell of a lot better athlete than you. That was true, Ben thought. The sons of Bull Meacham lived with the awareness that they would never match the excellence of their father in athletics. In all sports, they lacked his inextinguishable fierceness, his hunger for games. It was not that they were not competitive. They were, compulsively so. It was that this sense of competition was not elevated to a higher level. In Bull Meacham, the will to win transformed all games into a furious art form. The game was a framework in which there was a winner and a loser. Bull Meacham was always a winner. He played cow bingo with the same fervor as he played his last college basketball game at St. Luke's. He played Old Maid with Karen and Matt with the same competitiveness as when he battled Japanese pilots in the Pacific. The stakes could be higher in some games than others, but Bull played them all to win. Ben had inherited his father's speed of foot, his good eyes, and much of his competitiveness, but he had not received his father's genius for games, the raw nerve ends and synapses that brought a game up from a regional sport into a faith based on excellence, a creed toughened by fire. But on this hot August day in Ravenel, South Carolina, under the blaze of a terrible sun, Ben thought that he had a great equalizer working for him, called youth. Ben was 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighed 165 pounds. His father was 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 220 pounds. But Ben had been correct when he observed that Bull had thickened over the last years. He had become heavy in the thighs, stomach, and buttocks. The fast places had eroded. Rolls of fat encircled him, and he wore the sweatsuit to keep his new ballast unexposed. He was planning to lose weight anyway. There was nothing Bull Meacham hated worse than a fat Marine. It took a long time for Bull to warm up, and it gave Ben a chance to study his moves. Lillian called from the sidelines for Bull to quit stalling, but Bull remained unhurried, gliding around the court with the definitive moves of the natural. Though his speed was gone, his quickness was not. His hands were still very fast. He could handle a basketball with remarkable dexterity for one who had abandoned the court so long ago. He was heavy, yet he was still a dancer, and the easy moves of the old predator came back to him effortlessly as he went from spot to spot, testing his eye. "Let's get the game going," Lillian said, clapping her hands. But Bull would not be hurried. He was seriously practicing his two-hand set shot. The hands that could make jets perform exotic gymnastics in the sky had a softness of touch and an inborn surety that made him an excellent outside shooter. The pilot with the good eyes for spotting enemy troop movements, for columns of tanks, and for artillery positions could also use those eyes for looking up and for judging the distance between the basket and his hands, for that silent worship of rims. He shot his two-hand set in a soft spinning arc that, when true, snapped through the net in a swishing voice that is the purest music of the game. Even when he missed, the spin on the ball made it die on the rim, and it would often bounce once or twice between the rim and the backboard before falling in. As Ben fed him passes from under the basket, Bull made 8 out of 12 set shots, moving in a semicircle outside the scratched-out foul line. Time after time, Bull brought the ball to eye level, almost resting on its nose. He sighted the rim, bent his knees, and in a rhythm that never changed, launched his body, his arms and the ball upward toward the basket, his fingers spreading out like fans with the 2 index fingers pointing toward the center of the rim. Like all good shooters, the pattern of Bull's shooting did not deviate. In fact, it was unconscious, buried in instinct, and rooted in long hours of boyhood practice. He did the same thing each time the ball left his fingers to hunt the cords. Over and over, monotonous, without change, until finally he said to his son, "Let's play ball." "You sure you don't want to warm up for a little longer?" Lillian said. "You've only taken about an hour." "Do any of you creeps realize that this is not exactly a world-important event?" Marianne said. "Uh-oh," Bull answered. "Miss Funeral Shroud has come to spread joy." "Don't give him a clear shot, Ben," Lillian coached. "Keep him away from the basket and don't let him take his set." "Someone ought to cheer for Daddy," Karen said. "You cheer for him," her mother answered. "Yeah, Karen, give your big dad a few cheers. All the raspberries are coming his way." "You take it out first, Dad," Ben said, bouncing the ball to his father. "Play to 10 baskets by 1. You have to win by 2. 2? Why not 1? First guy to 10, Bull protested. "Of course, it's not going to be that close, sports fans." "You have to take it behind the foul line after each shot, Dad." "Don't stand under the basket, Jocko. You might get killed by one of my shots, crashing through the basket. If you get a shot off." Ben moved in close to guard his father, who began dribbling toward the basket with deliberate caution. He turned his butt toward Ben and back toward the basket, dribbling first to the right and then to the left. When Ben tried to reach around to swat at the ball, Bull prevented this by holding him off with his free arm. He took Ben almost underneath the basket. Then, in a quick, fluid move, he pivoted for a hook shot that caromed lightly off the backboard. "One to goose egg, sports fans," Bull shouted at his booing family. Taking the ball behind the foul line, Ben saw that his father was not coming out to play defense on him. He made a move for the basket, went up for a jump shot. His father, off balance, poked him in the stomach as he went up, but the ball went in. "He's starting to cheat," Lillian cried out. 1-1, Ben said. Bull did not even dribble this time. He set himself immediately, and before Ben could recover, had launched a high two-hander toward the rim that missed. Rebounding the ball quickly, Ben brought it past the foul line, changed the direction of his dribble twice, gave his father a head fake, a stutter step, then drove toward the basket as recklessly as he knew how. To his surprise, he had broken completely free and laid the ball in effortlessly. 2-1, he called to his father. The game became rough. Sweat poured down Bull's face, and Ben caught an elbow under the left eye when he tried to block one of Bull's hook shots. Each time Bull received the ball, he would take his time, dribbling cautiously, moving backward, taking his smaller son under the basket. Ben, for his part, kept driving past his father, changing speeds and sweeping past him as Bull lunged heavily after a son who had fooled him, betrayed him with speed. Ben kept saying to himself, "I'll make him work on defense. I'll get his legs tired trying to stop me. When his legs go, his shooting will go. He's out of shape. If I can't get him tired, I'll get him mad. If I can get him mad, I'll beat him." The game remained close, both combatants missing shots they should have made and sinking baskets that defied all principles of the game. Finally, the score was tied 9-9, and the family on the sidelines readied themselves for a denouement. Bull had the ball. Ben pressed in close to him with his left hand waving in front of his father's eyes. He wanted to be sure to prevent the two-handed set. During the game, over and over again, he had proven that Bull was no longer fast enough to drive around him. Bull was breathing as though steam engines were working his lungs. His lips were flecked with dried saliva, and sweat was pouring off his body. He made 2 half-hearted feints toward the basket, hoping to catch Ben off balance and get an unchallenged set shot. But Ben stayed close to him, his chest almost against his father's belly, their sweat commingling and their breaths crossed like 2 alien winds. "Have you ever read Moby Dick, Dad?" Ben asked. "Shit, no," Bull murmured, pivoting around and beginning a low, cautious dribble, inching his way toward the basket with Ben fastened to his rump. "Why do you ask, sports fans?" "'Cause you kind of remind me of that great big fat white whale." "Touche, touche," Lillian screamed. "This looks like the last shot of the game, Jocko." "If you make it," Ben said, leaning with all his weight against his father's rear, trying to slow the inevitable move toward the basket for the easy hook shot. "Does a maggot live in dead meat?" Bull said. "Gosh, Dad is disgusting," said Marianne. "He's just low-born," said Lillian. Then she began shouting, "Kill him, Ben! Keep your hands up!" At that moment, Bull glanced over at Lillian, irritation spliced on the corners of his mouth. When Ben saw his eye depart from the center of action, he stepped backwards like a caboose uncoupling from another car. In that single instant, Ben was unseen and unfelt by his father. He slapped Bull on the left buttock, then swept low around his father's right side. Feeling Ben's release and the hand hitting his left side, Bull reflexively looked to his left and switched the ball to his right hand. As he did so, he realized his mistake and tried to recover, but by this time Ben had flicked the ball away from him and retrieved it near the porch. The family of spectators broke into applause when they sensed that Ben had a chance to win the game. At the far edge of cement, almost touching the porch, Ben stood motioning for his father to come out to play defense. "Whip his fanny, Ben," Matt's voice cried out from behind the screen door in the kitchen. "It is I, the great Bentini," Ben mimicked as he began to dribble the ball between his legs, trying to shame his father into open court where he knew he could drive around him. "Let's play ball," Bull rumbled, his face blood red from anger. His eyes had narrowed into star points of cold, the killing edge of a personal fury that marked a crossing of the line, which Lillian recognized immediately. "Why don't we just call it a tie and call both of you winners?" she said. "I said, let's play ball," Bull growled in a lower, more frightening octave. "Why don't you just come out here and get it, great Santini?" Ben teased, unaware of the changes that were taking place in his opponent. "I quit now, Ben," Marianne advised. "He's getting that same look on his face that he gets when he runs over turtles on trips." Dribbling slowly, Ben started toward his father, changing hands with each dribble, hoping to catch Bo with his weight shifted in the wrong direction. "Do you know, Dad, that not one of us here has ever beaten you in a single game? Not checkers, not dominoes, not softball, nothing." "Come on, Mama's boy," Bo whispered. "Bring little Mama's boy up to Daddy Ball." Right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. The ball drummed against the cement as Ben waited for his father to move out against him, and Bull held back, fearing the drive to the basket. At the foul line, Ben left his feet for the jump shot, eyed the basket at the top of his leap, let it go softly, the wrist snapping, the fingers pointing at the rim, and the ball spinning away from him as Bull lunged forward and drove his shoulder into Ben's stomach, knocking him to the ground. Though he did not see the ball go in, he heard the shouts of his mother and sisters. He saw Matthew leaping up and down on the porch. He felt his father rise off him slowly, coming up beaten by his son for the first time in his life. Screaming with joy, Ben jumped up and was immediately flooded by his family, who hugged, slapped, pummeled, and kissed him. Lillian and Matt tried to pick Ben up, but he was too heavy, and all three of them fell into the grass laughing, forgetting the lone figure of the father standing under the basket, sweating, red-faced, and mute, watching the celebration of his wife and children with the inchoate, resurrected anger of a man who never quit in his life. Marianne saw him standing alone and went over to say something comforting. "You played a good game, Dad," she said. "Get out of here." "You didn't lose by much," Marianne continued, ignoring the vital signs. "Get out of here before I start knocking off every freckle off your face." Marianne put her hands to her face, removed her glasses, and looked at her father with eyes that were filling with tears. "That was mean, Daddy. You had no call to say that," she said, running toward the front yard. Then Bull shouted at Ben, "Hey, Jocko, you gotta win by 2 baskets. The backyard became quiet again. Ben looked at his father and said, "You said by 1. "I changed my mind. Let's go," Bull said, picking up the basketball. "Oh, no, Bull," Lillian said, marching out toward her husband. "You're not going to cheat the boy out of his victory." "Who in the hell asked you anything?" Bull said, glaring at his wife. "I don't care if anybody asks me or not. He beat you fair and square, and I'm not going to let you take that away from him." "Get over here, Mama's boy," Bull said, motioning to Ben, "and let's you and me finish this game." Ben moved forward until he heard his mother shout at him, "You stay right there, Ben Meacham. Don't you dare move." "Why don't you go hide under your mother's skirts, Mama's boy," Bull said. He was gaining control of the situation again and was entering a phase of malevolent calm that Lillian was having difficulty translating. "Mama, I'm going to play him," Ben said. "No, you're not," his mother answered harshly with finality. Then, speaking to her husband, she said, "He beat you, Big Marine. He beat the Big Marine where everybody could see it, right out in the open, and it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. Big Marine can't take it that his baby boy just beat him to death on the basketball court. Get in the house, Lillian, before I kick you into the house. Don't threaten me, Big Tough Marine." Does Big Tough Marine have to pick on his family the day his son becomes a better man? Bull pushed Lillian toward the house, spinning her away from him, and kicked her in the buttocks with a swift, vicious kick. "Stop that, Dad," Ben shouted. "You stop that." "Quit kicking, Mama," Karen screamed. He kicked her again. Each kick was directing her toward the stairs. Finally, Lillian started to run for the kitchen. Bull would have kicked her another time, but Ben got between him and his mother. The screen door slammed as Lillian disappeared from view. Bull's face was hideously contorted as he stood face to face with Ben, who was trembling involuntarily. "You sort of like winning, don't you, Dad?" Ben said, trying to sound unconcerned and in control, but fear lay heavy on his voice. Bull went up to Ben until they were almost nose to nose, as Ben had seen drill instructors do to recruits. With his forefinger, he began poking Ben's chin. "You get smart with me, Jocko, and I'll kick you upstairs with your mother so you pussies can ball together. Now guard me. You gotta win by 2. "I'm not gonna guard you, Dad. I won," Ben said, his voice almost breaking. He could feel himself about to cry. Bull saw it too. "That's it, Mama's boy. Start to cry. I want to see you cry." Bull roared, his voice at full volume, a voice of drill fields, a voice to be heard above the thunder of jet engines, a voice to be heard above the din of battle. Bull took the basketball and threw it into Ben's forehead. Ben turned to walk into the house, but Bull followed him, matching his steps and throwing the basketball against his son's head at intervals of 3 steps. Bull kept chanting, "Cry, cry, cry." Each time the bullet ricocheted off his son's skull. Through the kitchen, Ben marched through the dining room, never putting his hands behind his head to protect himself, never trying to dodge the ball. Ben just walked, and with all his powers of concentration rising to the surface of consciousness of being alive and of being son, Ben tried not to cry. That was all he wanted to derive from the experience, the knowledge that he had not cried. He wanted to show his father something of his courage and dignity. All the way up the stairs, the ball was hurled against his head. The hair short and bristly from the morning haircut, the head this moment vulnerable, helpless, and loathed. Ben knew that once he made it to his room, the ordeal would end, and he would have the night to consider all the symbols of this long march, the heads of sons, the pride of fathers, victors, losers, the faces of kicked wives, the fear of families, the Saturdays in the reign of Santini. But now, through this hallway and up these final stairs, I must not cry, until he saw his room. Breaking into a run, he felt Bull release him, free him, his head throbbing, dizzy, and the son of the fighter pilot fell onto his bed, face downward, afraid that tears would come if he did not stem their flow in the cool whiteness of his pillow. His father stood in the doorway, and Ben heard him say, so that the whole family could hear, "You're my favorite daughter, Ben. I swear to God, you're my sweetest little girl." Then, turning toward the door, blinded by water and light, Ben spit back, "Yeah, Dad, and this little girl just whipped you good." The door slammed.